Hello and welcome. So we are continuing with the history, that is Form 1. Remember the first part that we introduced this subject. We looked at the study of history. Why do we study history? What is history? And the types of history. But this time around, we are going to look at the time in history and the origins of people. Time in history and the origins of people. So this is yet another wonderful part. Let's be together because we are going to explore a lot of things by the end of this topic. So time in history. Time in history. We are going to start with this one, chronological order. Chronological order. You can pronounce that one, chronological order. So don't make the mistake on pronunciation. Sometimes people, they do hate history because of names, because of the dates. But here, if you understand this part, you are going to like history so much because you will know that the history applies in almost everything. So chronological order. So in history, events, they follow the chronological order. We are going to say or to know that in history, things, they do flow. They do follow the chronological order. So by chronological order, we mean the arrangement of events in order in which they happened. Arrangement of events in the order of its happening. To say this one happened in this year or at this time, then followed this, then followed this, then followed this. That one, it is the chronological order. For example, let me give you this example to say when we talk of like elections, consider maybe the 2019 elections. What was the chronology of that elections? We started by registration. Then after registration, then there was that campaign period. Then we voted. Then after that, the results were announced. Then after that, it followed that some parties, they were not happy with the results. Then they went to court. Then demonstrations followed. Then the court ruling followed. Things like those. So that is the sequence. So you cannot say can you tell us how those elections, the 2019 elections, went about, or the chronology of that 2019 elections? You cannot say there was the court order, then demonstrations, then registration, and then there was the campaign, and thereafter there was the court. They sued to the court. Then we voted. No, that one, you are confusing the thing. So when we say chronology, it means the order of the happenings. So chronology, it helps us to add some sense to a series of events. It makes sense when you put the things in a chronological order. So chronological order is very, very important, to put things in their order. Even when you are writing like maybe an essay, you have to follow that chronological order. You find that your things, your facts are making sense. Even when you are presenting something, maybe someone says, I told you to do something. Can you give me a report of what happened? Then you start from the beginning to say, all right, I started by doing this, then thereafter there was this, then this, and these are my findings, like that. So you cannot confuse things. So if you are able to present your facts in that chronological order, then you will make sense. So chronology is the arrangement of events in order of their happening. So let's look at dates. Dates again, they are also important. Dates in history. So time is read from the birth of Jesus Christ. So time that we live in, it is measured by the death of Jesus Christ, which is assumed to be the year 0. So it is assumed that Jesus was born in the year 0. So any day, any time before that date, before that assumed date, any day, any time before that one, the years are said to be before Christ. That's why you hear that 400 BC, it was 400 before the year 0, in which it is assumed that Jesus Christ was born. So it is said before Christ, abbreviated to BC, 300 BC, 400 BC. We'll be mentioning a lot of those dates here as we go along. So just know that that one, it is before Christ. So Christ is assumed to be born in the year 0. So any date before the year 0, it is before Christ. So after that assumed date, that is after that year 0, the years are said to be Anno Domini, which is AD, So AD is or Anno Domini is a Latin phrase which is standing for in the year of our Lord, in the year of our Lord. That is a Latin word, Anno Domini. It doesn't mean after death. Sometimes people will be saying, AD after death, because BC is before Christ. So after death, no. It is Anno Domini. So Anno Domini, it means in the year of our Lord. That is in the year that the Lord was born. So from the year of our Lord, in the year when Jesus was born. So it is said AD. So for example, the years that we are living, they are the 20s, maybe 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2030. Those ones are the AD. So it's measured to say it is the year 2020 after the birth of Christ. So that is how time is measured. So time can be presented as a decade. So take note of this. Time can also be measured as a decade, also as a century, also as a millennium. So take note of how time can also be measured. So when we say a decade is a period of 10 years. So a period of 10 years, that one is a decade. While a century, this one, it is a period of 100 years. So don't take note of these things, master these things. A period of 10 years, that one is a decade. So while a century, it is made up of 100 years. Yeah, so a decade, a century, a millennium, it's 1,000 years. Now let's look at this one, the century, because we say like this time around we are living in a century. So what is this? So from the first year, year 1, it is shortened to first, or that is a first century. So shortened to 1, then SD highlighted or superscripted. So 1, the years 1 to 99, those years they are the first century. So when you say the first century, it is implying the years 1 to 99. What about the second century? which is written like 2 and power nd, that is the second. Then that one is made up of the years 100 to 199. That is the second year, the second century. The third century, it is written or abbreviated to this, that is 3 and RD, third. So third century made up of the years 200 to 299. What about the 15th century? 15th century, written or abbreviated or shortened to this, then you find that the years, they are 1400 to 1499. You should observe these things, the sequence, how they move, these things. And 20th century, it is written like this, 20 and TH. Then the years are 1900 to 1999. That is 1900 to 1999. Those are the years. Then 21st century, it is written like 21 and ST. That one is 21st. So those years are the years 2000 to 2099. So the question is, in which century are we living now? So you can definitely see to it that we are in between 2000 and 2099. Therefore, we are in the 21st century. So that's how time is presented. So remember, a decade, 10, a century, 100, a millennium, 1000. So to obtain a century of a date, you need to add 100 to the year. So before you add the figures up, cross out the last two digits of the year. So let's look at what we are saying here. We are saying, for example, the year 2000. You are asked to say which century is the year 2000. Now, we have said that to obtain a century, you need to add 100 to that year. So what you do is 2000 is here, then you are going to add 100 here. Now, we have also said that, number 2, observe here, that before you add the figures here, you cross out the last two digits. So what are you going to do here? What you are going to do is you are going to cross out the last two digits. That is this one and this one. Then you add. What do you have? You have here, you have here 20 and 1. So they are the figures that you are adding. That is, you'll be adding these two because you want to find a century. So from there, 20 plus 1, you get your answer as 21. So that one, you just shorten it, then that is the 21st century. So as simple as that, that is how you find the century. So in short, what we are saying is that the year 2000 that you have been asked to find the century, it was the 21st century, or it is in the 21st century. So try to work out this one. Let's also try to work out the 64 AD as a century. So you have been asked to find the 64 AD. In which century was the 64 AD? So the first thing that you do is you convert the year 64 to the status of 100 or a century. You convert it to 100. To make it 100, that is, 100 has 3 digits. So make sure that 64 should have 3 digits. So you are going to add this 0 so that it is like in a 100 form. So you see it here, it will be 064 that year. So remember the formula that we follow. We said you add 100 to to that year. So we are going to add 100 to 64. Now remember the rule. Remember the rule. Don't forget the rule. The rule is that before you add, you cross out the last two digits. These ones, you move them out. You remove them. So you have to remove the last two digits from there. So let's cross out 64 and 00. So what do we have? We have a 0 there and a 0 and 1. So what do we get? 1 or 1 plus 0, it means we are also getting 1 there. So what does it mean? The year 64, it was in the 1st century AD. So don't confuse these things there. So simple, very simple mathematics there. Now let's look at the time chart. The time chart. So time in history can also be presented in form of a chart. So sometimes we use the charts to present time. To show a marked order of events. So we can have a chart, and on that chart there is a marked order of events from the top. Then we put them in the order of their happening. So a line is marked into equal parts. So you draw a line and mark it into equal parts. So each part represents a division of time length. So when you have a line, then you divide it into equal parts to say, all right, these are the divisions of my line. Then what we are saying is that these the lines or the divisions, they represent a certain period of time. Let's take you are starting from the year 1900 here, the year 1900. So it means 1900 here, or this division represents 10. So here it means 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, 1950, like that. So this one that we have seen here, this one is a time chart, because you draw a line and you put, you demarcate it, and that demarcation or the demarcation, they represent the period, a certain period of time. So this is just the example of the time chart, the example of the time chart. So you may have a closer look on it, but the interest mainly should be, or the emphasis is on the time chart, or the line and its demarcations. You see the demarcations there. So the demarcations, again, they represent time. So look at here, there is 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930, like that, and there 1980, 1990, like that. So the demarcations or the lines there, they are representing a period of 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. Now, with that demarcation, with the demarcations there, then events are put there now on what happened in different periods. So a lot of things, they are happening. They happened at a different period of time. So that is the time chart to say, right, this is how events flowed. So you are able to know, or you are able to put your things according to the happening. So for example, if you are asked to write your time chart, then you put, all right, you start maybe with the, you put, start from the year 2000, maybe going up, or maybe 2000 to 2030. Then sometimes your demarcations will be done into two. You put a demarcation of 222 because it's a short period of time. Then you start, all right, I was born maybe in the year 209. Now, so in 209, I was born. Then you put, demarcate it, you indicate it somewhere, say 209. Then from 2000, you count the lines there, and to where you can find a 9 there. Then later on I started school, standard 1 at so primary school. Then later on I got to secondary. I started secondary school at so school. Then things like those, and all the events that happen to your life, you can easily put it in your timeline. Now, what is the importance of the time charts and the dates in history? So we have looked at the dates and the time charts. So what is the importance? Why should we have the dates? As I indicated earlier on, to say some people, they do hate history because of the dates. But let's look at the importance of the dates and time in history. So the dates, they help us to know when and how long events have been happening. So we are able to know when those things and for how long they have been happening. And also dates and time charts, they prevent confusion of events. So you cannot confuse the events when you use the time charts or the dates, because each happening had its own date, had its own time. So when you present them on the time charts, there is no confusion. And also they also show chronology of events. Remember the chronology, that is the order of happening. So dates and the time charts, they help us to know the order of things in which they happened, and that is chronology. And also they give the reader information of how old an event is, to say, right, there is something that happened in 1956. So up to now, it means there have been so many years, or so years. You can easily calculate the years since that event happened. And not only that, they enable the reader to see whether the events happened concurrently in different locations. So you can also be assisted to know, all right, this thing that happened here, it also happened somewhere. Or when here there was something else, uh, somewhere else there was another thing that was happening. You can know the things that happened concurrently, to say, while these things was happening at this time, I see here that the same year also something happened somewhere. So you can also know that other things, they happened at the same time. That is concurrently. Now, having looked at the part of time in history, uh, we have looked at a number of issues there, the dates, the time charts, chronology, and many other things that we have looked in here. So from here now we know how dates are measured in history, and we have now discovered the real history. When we mention time, now we know what happens or what we mean in different aspects. Now, having looked at that, we stop here for now, but next time we are going to proceed from there, because remember we said we are going to look at time and the origins of people. So next we are going to look at the origins of people. What do we know, or what do we say in history about the origins of people? So this is that part which is very crucial, looking at the origins of people. So until next time, thank you so much.